now our speaker this week is somebody we haven't heard from for some time, and somebody I always enjoy, and who always stimulates me to think about something in a different way, and that's our very own Therese Solimeno. So go ahead, Therese.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning, everybody. Happy Mother's Day. I'm going to do something today that we rarely do at church. I'm going to have a Bible study. As some of you know, I went to a Catholic elementary school, and we rarely studied the Bible there. We had catechism, which Father Guido Sarducci called Disney with theology. And the example of that is in catechism, where is God? God is everywhere. Why? Because he likes you. We did study the greatest hits of the Old Testament, like Adam and Eve and Noah and his ark and Moses and Lot and his wife and various other Old Testament and New Testament stories. And it was really hard to argue with the nuns when they would say, make statements like, if Moses could part the Red Sea, you can certainly finish your math homework. But of course, Jesus was the main event in the New Testament, and we learned a lot about him. But as we all know, his story didn't end well, at least from the perspective of a child. When I was a kid, I thought, oh my gosh, he was so lucky to have been born at Christmas time and to have all kinds of magical powers. I mean, he could even walk on water. But by Easter, he was killed, and that's why we couldn't eat bologna sandwiches on Fridays. The stories in the Bible were always so punitive and gruesome. You would get thrown out of paradise just for eating an apple, or turned into a pillar of salt for looking behind you. People were drawn and quartered and eaten by lions or nailed to a cross upside down. And don't even get me started on the creative ways that Catholic saints were martyred. There was more violence and retribution than a Quentin Tarantino movie. I was never a big fan of horror movies as a kid, and so I avoid reading the Bible whenever I could, which continued into my adulthood. One of my biggest issues with the Bible, though, was related to the 10 Commandments. Although, according to Mel Brooks's movie, History of the World Part 1, there were originally 15 commandments. First, I never liked to be told what to do, which still continues to this day. And second, these commandments were so negative. Thou shalt not do this. Thou shalt not do that. How about a please and thank you once in a while? And then, of course, we all know what happens when you tell somebody not to do something, as in that classic example of don't think of pink elephants. But when I came to Unity, I was most interested in metaphysical Bible interpretation. And I thought, oh, you mean we don't really have to take this stuff literally? I learned that throughout Jesus's ministry, he often clarified or simplified principles of the Old Testament writings that had gotten complicated or distorted by centuries of Hebrew politics or power grabs. And when I started reading in that context, I learned how Jesus had whittled the 10 Commandments down to 2. You all know what they are. Love God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength and with all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself. Those are both from Luke. Clear, simple, positive, easy to remember. I should mention that George Carlin also combined all 10 commandments into 2, but his were slightly different. Thou shalt always be honest and faithful to the provider of thy nookie, and thou shalt try real hard not to kill anyone unless they pray to a different invisible man than the one you pray to. The interpretations are a little different there between Jesus and George Carlin. Condensing 10 commandments into 2 didn't really solve my problem, though. How do we love something we've never seen, we struggle to understand, and we have been taught to fear our whole lives? I wanted a God with skin on. What did help is that Unity teaches that we are expressions of one creative God, and in much the same way that a wave is an expression of the ocean. We are not the ocean, but we have all of the elements of that ocean within us as each individual wave. And unity names several attributes that we all embody. We may never be able to fully grasp the nature of God, but we can feel and express those attributes such as love, power, life, strength, wisdom, order, law, and zeal. I'll give you an example of my experience of this. When I was at Unity Village about 25 years ago studying for my teaching license, I took a class called The Power of Prayer. The assignment was to meditate on the attributes of God. I was never any good at meditating. My mind wandered a lot and I could never get physically comfortable. So I went into the little prayer chapel that rarely had anybody in it, and I just laid down on the floor. And I started running through the attributes in my head like a mantra. God is love, I am love. God is power, I am power. When I got to life, God is life, I am life, I felt like I was shot with a bolt of electricity. Every cell in my body was lit up like a pinball machine. My mood was enhanced, my senses were heightened. It was better than any high I had ever experienced ever, and it stayed with me the entire day. Others have said that I experienced a love vibration, but whatever it was, to me, it was a minor glimpse into what being truly aligned with spirit feels like. And it also solidified my commitment to meditate more often. I had never felt so connected with spirit and the people around me, and all was perfect in my world. And I realized something we all know, but we have a hard time practicing, that loving God and loving our neighbors are the same as loving ourselves, because we are all part of the same flow of energy that comes from the source that we call God. So the two commandments became one short and simple commandment: love. We hear it all the time. The Beatles wrote a great song about it. And when we love ourselves enough to express love and forgiveness, kindness, and compassion, I know you've all heard that me say this before: love, forgiveness, kindness, and compassion towards ourselves as well as others in all situations as best as we can, then naturally we will not want to do harm or injustice to ourselves or anyone else. So what Jesus was really saying was, when you love God and your neighbors as yourself, thou shalt not lie. When you love God and your neighbors as yourself, thou shalt not steal, murder, have jealous thoughts, or covet anything, or behave in ways that are detrimental, negative, destructive to the calm peace of my soul. So these were promises, not commandments. If you do this, then I promise this will be the outcome. The third commandment is a premier example of this. And I'm going to ask everybody here if you have broken the third commandment today, which is, thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain. Taken literally, one might think that the third commandment is about cursing. But on a metaphysical level, it has a lot more meaning than that. If we accept the name of the Lord as I am, which is indicated in the story of Moses at the burning bush, then we know that God lives in the present of I am. I am right now, here and now. And anytime we follow the words I am with anything negative, as in I am lazy, I am stupid, I am unworthy, I am unlovable, etc., etc. Whenever we speak ill of others, or we gossip or complain about our lives, or we think unhealthy thoughts, then we are taking the Lord's name in vain. What we voice in words reflects a state of consciousness, and consciousness is forever projecting itself into our reality. As I think, so I am. This is such an important concept, that be impeccable with your word, as some of you who study the 4 agreements knows, is one of those 4 agreements. To sum this up, Jesus implied that when we love ourselves / God / others with our whole heart and soul and our strength and our mind, we are promised a more personally satisfying spiritual and physical life. These promises reassure us that focusing on love helps us surmount any challenge, overcome any conflict, lighten our hearts, and help us live more in harmony with ourselves and the world around us. And that is my wish for you. Thank you for listening. Namaste.